Preface to the audiobook. Is a preface even necessary? That was the debate going on in my head when I first thought of one, considering that the speech which I have converted into this audiobook is thorough and comprehensive, something we expect from a speech by Dr. Ambedkar. But eventually, after giving it some thought, I came to the realization that it is not only necessary but rather imperative that I add a preface. Without a preface, I was worried that this audiobook could be chalked up to an exercise in nostalgia of a historical speech given by our beloved leader and not seen as a call to action or as something urgent and compelling that it actually is. I also felt that without a preface, any foreigners, non-Indians, who happen to chance upon this audiobook might not be able to fully appreciate the speech and why it is important and pertinent even today, 85 years after it was originally delivered, especially if they are unaware of how caste and untouchability still operate among Indians, be they back in India or settled elsewhere. So, to address these things, set the tone, context, and purpose, I have proceeded to add this preface. To further help the listeners, and also for ease of structuring topics, I have organized the preface into two parts. The first part of the preface is for the community, primarily the untouchable community, but also any others from the lower rungs of the caste system who are crushed under the yoke of caste oppression and are still seeking a way out. And the second part of the preface is for the non-Indian audience who might benefit from knowing answers to questions like, is untouchability and caste oppression still practiced in India? Why and how did untouchability come about? And finally, what if any was the outcome of this speech? Was there a mass conversion as called for by Dr. Ambedkar or not? And if there was one, what are the main aspects of it? I hope to do my best to address the needs of both these groups and still keep the preface short so you can get to the actual speech. So without any further delay, let me start with the first part of the preface. Dear community members, my sincere hope in producing this audiobook is to remind us all of what Dr. Ambedkar thought of conversion and why he prescribed it as the antidote to cure the stigma of untouchability. It seems to me a very crucial and timely reminder since, in our quest to emancipate ourselves, we have done and continue to do anything and everything but convert. So I really urge you to pay attention to this speech and open your hearts and minds to Baba Saheb's message. Let the message move you. If you do so, I promise that by the end of the speech, you will feel inspired to convert or at least seriously consider it if you are still in the Hindu fold, that is. As Buddha says, when any of my disciples brings round a man by instruction to rightly employ his intellectual and ethical powers, that is the true miracle. Baba Saheb's speech does exactly that. By way of argument and instruction, he awakens our intellectual and ethical faculties and impresses upon us the need to convert. A true miracle indeed. In addition to that, I also hope that listening to this speech will make you realize that annihilation of the Hindu caste system and cleanup of the Hindu religion is not our concern or our burden. Hindu religion can be what it can be, and whether to clean it up or leave it as is, intact, untouched, pun intended, which is more in line with the concept of the eternal Sanatani Dharma, is for caste Hindus to decide. These 2 points are made clear by Dr. Ambedkar in the chapter under the title, Does the Fault Lie with the Untouchables Alone?, which I will recant here. To reform the Hindu society is neither our aim nor our field of action. Our aim is to gain freedom. We have nothing to gain with anything else. If we can gain our freedom by conversion, why should we shoulder the responsibility for the reform of the Hindu religion? And why should we sacrifice our strength and property for that? No one should misunderstand the object of our movement as being Hindu social reform. The object of our movement is to achieve social freedom for the untouchables. It is equally true that this freedom cannot be secured without conversion. Now, our confusion with regards to annihilation of caste and taking on the burden of cleaning the Hindu religion comes, I believe, from the fact that almost all of us get introduced to Dr. Ambedkar's work by reading his undelivered speech, Annihilation of Caste, and thus mistaking that to be our duty. Quite an understandable confusion, if I may say so. However, once we pay attention to that part of the text where Dr. Ambedkar mentions as to how much he wants to get involved with the actual task of annihilation of caste, which, spoiler alert for those who haven't yet read Annihilation of Caste, is none at all, it will be very easy for us to understand the irony in taking that task upon ourselves. And it will be even easier to drop that assumed burden once we realize that an easier path to salvation exists. To further support the above conclusion, let me read the below quote from Dr. Ambedkar from that very undelivered speech, Annihilation of Caste. Towards the end of the speech, after having schooled caste Hindus up until that point, he says, "I am sorry, I will not be with you. I have decided to change. This is not the place for giving reasons, but even when I am gone out of your fold, I will watch your movement with active sympathy, and you will have my assistance for what it may be worth." Thus, leaving no doubt in the reader's mind that he wants nothing to do with regards to annihilation of caste or the general cleanup of the Hindu religion itself, thereby also absolving all of us, his community, of that burden. Not my circus, not my monkeys is how one would summarize Dr. Ambedkar's attitude towards the task of annihilation of caste here in America. Anyways, in all seriousness, our only aim is freedom, specifically our freedom as individuals and as a community. So convert yourself and gain that freedom. Basically, do what Baba Saheb tells you in the speech. Now, I do understand that there are some logistical and legal issues one faces when they want to undergo conversion in the current Indian political climate. I will also be the first to admit that I do not have an answer as to what the solution would be to counter such a blatant denial of a fundamental right to religion. But if I may propose, can we all, as our first step, just bring Buddha and his teachings consciously into our hearts and minds, and then promote it to among those around us? Wouldn't that in and of itself be a seismic shift? Wouldn't that give us a foothold of sorts to assert our existence? Wouldn't that do wonders for our human dignity and our spiritual and mental well-being? If you think so and feel inspired after listening to this speech, this is what I would propose. In your own way, declare to friends, family, or on your social media, your safe spaces, that you have given up Hindu religion and that you have embraced Buddhism and that you will abide by its precepts. A copy of these precepts can easily be obtained from a simple search on the internet, or for the die-hard Ambedkarite by reviewing the Buddha and his Dhamma written by Dr. Ambedkar himself. As a request, if any of you do know what the recourse is to legally convert and under what conditions a mass conversion can be arranged, do reach out to me and share the process so that I can add it as an appendix for a future edition. Your insight and help will be much appreciated by me and other listeners. Having said that much, I will leave you with my best wishes and hope that you will join me and many others from the community who are already on this path to salvation shown by our Messiah. Now I will turn my attention to the second group, foreigners, non-Indian listeners. Let us take the questions laid out in the beginning of the preface and answer them one by one. To the first question, is untouchability and caste oppression still practiced in India? The answer is in the affirmative. Untouchability directly affects about 250 million Indians classified as untouchables. Another 500 million or more who are above the untouchables in the caste hierarchy but still considered backward castes, though not affected by untouchability directly, are still affected by other forms of caste oppression. A simple test to prove this would be to review if the forms of oppression that Dr. Ambedkar cites in his speech to show how untouchability is enforced, mainly through atrocities, lynching, and boycott, still exist in present-day India or not. A few examples as to when caste Hindus unleash their anger and employ tyrannical methods that Dr. Ambedkar shares are: when untouchables enroll their children in government schools, when they draw water from public wells, when they take out a marriage procession with the groom on horseback, when they put on clothes of superior quality, when they purchase land for cultivation, when they refuse to carry away dead animals, when they walk the village road with socks and shoes on, when they serve chapatis, bread or ghee at a dinner party. Now, the burden of proof usually falls on the author, in this case on me, to prove that occurrences like the ones mentioned above are common and happen even today in India. However, in this instance, I actually want to refrain from doing so and rather invite you the listener, to furnish yourself with such proof. This I do for these reasons. 1. I want you all, especially foreigners, to learn firsthand on your own how to mine for this data. I can show you how, and it is very easy. 2. You can let your curiosity define what leads you will follow and what searches you perform. Perhaps the issue of enrolling children in school or getting water from a public well that reminds you of racial segregation in the American South fascinates you. Or perhaps it is the fact that the untouchables are lynched for serving chapatis and ghee which they are buying with their own money baffles you. Or perhaps you will come up with a whole different search, one where you are interested in knowing about, say, atrocities on women, LGBTQ community, and how the intersectionality of them also being untouchable plays out, whatever strikes your fancy. Finally, and most importantly, any such search that you do when you want to will yield news on these topics as current as when you perform your search. That will be more indicative of the times as opposed to a listing of incidents I would be able to provide at the time of this recording, which could be considered stale news by the listeners even if only a few years old, thereby defeating the purpose. So I request that you furnish yourself with such details, be our field reporters. And the process is very simple. Either now or when the opportunity presents itself, perform a simple internet search with an issue you want to inquire into. For example, Dalit man killed for sporting a mustache. Dalit MP, Member of Parliament, not allowed to enter a Hindu temple. Dalit woman raped by police. Separate burial grounds for Dalit Muslims. The word Dalit here used interchangeably with the word untouchables, a term which not all of the untouchable community agrees upon, but used broadly in the news and other literary media which we are concerned with here. If you are a visual learner, a must-see documentary I would recommend is India Untouched, available on YouTube for free, and then continue on down that rabbit hole of other recommended videos. I do want to warn you at this juncture that the deeper you go down this rabbit hole, the more your romanticized perception of India will be challenged and eroded and left at nothing. So tread carefully and only to the extent you can handle reality. There is no turning back. Finally, within the context of your research on untouchability and caste, after satiating your curiosity and confirming that caste and untouchability exist within the confines of India and the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, to name a few, I urge you to expand your searches to outside the Indian subcontinent. If you do so, true to the prediction made by Dr. Ambedkar that if Hindus migrate to other countries in the world, caste would become a world problem, you will realize that it has indeed become a world problem. A problem especially seen in countries where there is a sizable Indian population, thereby necessitating interaction among them as it pertains to opportunities, resources, and an eagerness to move up in the social ladder. Confirming this theory, you will see many such reported incidents of caste discrimination in US, UK, and Canada, where there is a huge presence of the Indian diaspora and the friction among different Indians vying for a better life for themselves or their children is very much in play. Caste pride, caste consciousness, and feeling insulted when someone from a lower caste competes or claims equal status is as real and evokes as visceral a reaction in caste Hindus even here in their new home as it does if they were back in India. This and this alone is the reason why seemingly docile, friendly, charming Indians suddenly exhibit hostility and violence towards other Indians, and also the reason for accepting and enforcing arranged marriages. So it is perhaps as important for you all to take an interest in this phenomenon and be in the know-how. It will help you discern caste-related discrimination or atrocities happening in your own backyard. I will close this first question by answering this follow-up question, which only seems natural. Why has this oppression towards untouchables not ended even after untouchability has been made illegal? The answer to this question is given by Dr. Ambedkar in the chapter "This is a matter of class struggle," which you will listen further along, but for quick reference I will repeat here. Untouchability is not a transient or temporary feature. It is a permanent one. To put it plainly, it can be said that the struggle between the Hindus and the untouchables is a permanent phenomenon. It is eternal because the religion which has given you the lowest level in the society is itself eternal according to the belief of the high caste people. No change according to times and circumstances is possible. You are the lowest of the rungs today, you shall remain the lowest forever. This means the struggle between Hindus and untouchables will continue forever. Moving on to the second question, why and how did untouchability come about? The answer to this question in plain English is: untouchables are broken men separate from the settled community of the villagers. They are Buddhists who did not revert back to the Hindu religion and fold under the Hindu caste system. They are Buddhists who did not give up beef eating, especially in stark contrast to the Brahmins, who not only gave up beef eating from being one-time voracious beef eaters, but also gave up all meat eating. This rendered any social intercourse between the settled community and the broken men virtually impossible, and the latter were castigated and condemned as untouchables. And the saga continues to this day. No Hindu community, however low, will touch cow's flesh. On the other hand, there is no community which is really categorized as being an untouchable community which has nothing to do with the dead cow. Some eat its flesh, some remove its skin, and some others manufacture articles out of its skin and bones. A quick side note, if any of you were wondering why the Brahmins gave up meat eating completely, it was to counter the popularity of the great master's teaching, where he preached compassion even towards animals as a moral precept, but never prohibited meat eating. So, to gain ground over Buddhism, Brahmins, who were at times known as Gogna, cow thieves, on account of them demanding that a cow be killed in their honor whenever they visit a household and they be fed the choicest cuts, had to go one up and not only give up beef but all meat. For those interested in a more thorough reading of this topic, I would recommend the book The Untouchables, Who Were They and Why They Became Untouchables, also authored by Dr. Ambedkar and easily found on the internet for free, and which I will soon produce as an audiobook. Finally, I move on to the third question. What, if any, was the outcome of this speech? Was there a mass conversion as called for by Dr. Ambedkar or not? And if there was one, what were the main aspects of it? This speech was given by Dr. Ambedkar in 1936. He then researched his options as to what religion he should convert into along with his followers, or if a new religion was to be established. After 2 decades, during which he had to focus his time and attention on getting political and social safeguards for his community into the constitution before the Britishers left the country completely in the hands of the upper caste, he finally landed on Buddhism and converted with about 500,000 followers on 14th October 1956. This conversion happened in the city of Nagpur, which is the land of Nagas who were crucial in the spread of Buddhism in India. The exact location with a stupa built there has been enshrined as Diksha Bhumi, land where refuge was taken. The day of conversion named Dhammachakra Pravartan Din, the day when the wheel of Dhamma was turned. This day, picked by Dr. Ambedkar, was also significant and is generally known to Buddhists in India as Asoka Vijayadashami, the day when Emperor Asoka converted to Buddhism and, having converted, was instrumental in the spread of the religion all the way beyond Afghanistan in the northwest to the tip of the Indian subcontinent, and also to countries beyond like Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos and Thailand, to name a few. To commemorate this day, followers, ranging in hundreds of thousands, visit Diksha Bhumi and pay homage every year in October on Asoka Vijayadashami. After this conversion, Dr. Ambedkar had plans to host other such conversions, and one such event was planned for December of the same year. However, he attained Mahaparinirvana on the 6th of December, and those mass conversions never came to pass. This has been the most unfortunate incident that befell upon the community, because after his demise, despite his plea to his followers that they should strive to take the caravan forward, none of them actually helped with the propagation and or conversion, and Buddhism stayed localized and limited to those followers who converted along with him and to their families and to their future generations, robbing all other untouchable communities living elsewhere in India the path to salvation. About 70 years since, any new converts, far and few in between, have been those who have come into contact with Buddhism and Dr. Ambedkar's writings purely by accident and not due to any concerted effort by those from the community who were part of the Great Conversion. A real tragedy indeed. That, in a nutshell, is the context, setup, and reason why I felt the need to produce this audiobook and amplify this particular speech by Dr. Ambedkar. Hopefully, this preface has helped foreigners understand the plight of the untouchables, why they still need to be emancipated, and why Dr. Ambedkar offers conversion as the only path to salvation for them. As for community, hopefully, after listening to this speech, those of you who have not yet converted to Buddhism will do so with no further delay, and those who have since converted and emancipated themselves, myself included, will gather resources and focus on this very important means of emancipation for our community and take up conversion on a war footing. And if you are in want of a rallying cry, I repeat for you what Baba Sahib says in the section, Religion is for Man. Why do you remain in a religion which does not treat you as human beings? Why do you remain in a religion which prohibits you from entering temples? Why do you remain in a religion which prohibits you from securing drinking water from the public well? Why do you remain in a religion which comes in your way of getting a job? Finally, why do you remain in a religion which insults you at every step? Recorded on Juneteenth, 2022 by Siddhartha Valicherla, Rajagriha, Las Vegas, Nevada, United States of America.